There we go. Well, welcome, Paradigm Shifters. Yes, it's April 13th, 2021. And we're so grateful, so grateful, so grateful to have you be here. And we are at 925 members from 26 or so different
Awesome.
countries. Isn't that great? And
Hmm.
tonight we have a very special treat today. And I met Stephanie Ellison in Tony Robbins' event. Isn't that where we met?
Yep, that's it.
Unleash the power within.
Unleash the power.
Yes. And her story, just everything about her touches my heart. And let me tell you a little bit about Stephanie. She's a speaker, an author, and a podcast host. And I love this quote: "It takes a community to help a child heal." Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, Stephanie's story is one that'll grab your heart, squeeze it, but will leave you inspired and empowered. As a former foster youth, in and out of the system for over 15 years, she never imagined her life would amount to anything due to a lack of stability and security. As a kid, she'd believed the false truth of the disturbing examples surrounding her. Stephanie learned through outsiders, as she
Hmm.
referred to them, that there was another way of life and a healthier way. These educators, community members, and friends encouraged her to see the value she had to offer the world. Through hard work and perseverance, she rose above the dark challenges. Through mentorship and her community's help, she became the first in her family to graduate from high school and college. She earned a Master's of Education in Counseling and Human Development from Hardin Simmons University in Abilene, Texas. Yeah.
Hmm.
Stephanie was extremely grateful for everyone who helped her navigate her way through life and wanted to help other youths navigate their path. So in 2002, she began sharing her turbulent story of hope, forgiveness, and the power of education with youth, parents, and educators, with the goal of helping others see the good in the world, no matter what circumstances they face. So I love it that today Stephanie is an elementary school behavior specialist. She's coming to us from her classroom, an inspirational speaker, and I love this children's book author. I just ordered it. Activist and the host of Fostering Hope with Stephanie Ellison. Above all, she believes her most important role is of a wife and a mother. Stephanie is an activist for the voiceless and aims to be a light in the darkness, shining hope. So, with that, Stephanie, I am so blessed to have you. I tear up when I just think,
Oh,
yeah. So I'm going to turn this over to you and take it away. Tell us your story.
wow. Well, thank you so much for having me. It really is an honor and a blessing. Every time I get to share my story, it doesn't matter if it's with one person or 1,000. I just am so humbled and so grateful for the opportunity to live another day, shining a light of hope and kindness and gratitude into the world. So thank you for having me. I thank you for all of you that are joining me as well, whether it be during the recording or after, who are watching this. It really is meaningful work for me. Um, as my friend just shared with you, I grew up in some turbulent situations. And, if you think about your home life growing up and what that looked like, I would pose a question to you to think about. What does home look like? What made your house a home? For me, well, okay, let me go back to your question, the question for you. Was it baking cookies with your mom in the kitchen and talking about the boys you had crushes on, or playing baseball with your dad and talking about life and where you want to go with it, and or sitting on the front porch, just hanging out with your family, or was it going to the lake and going fishing and just enjoying the good old days before you even realize that they are the good old days? Whatever that is for you, whatever making a house a home is for you, know that if you have memories of that being your life, then you are very blessed, because not every child comes from that. And my story is similar to hundreds of thousands of children in our nation, and in our world. And I may be an exception to children with that come from where I do and have an education. I'm in the 1% category. Less than 1% graduate with a master's degree, and between 2 to 9% graduate with a bachelor's degree, and 20% graduate from high school, and sometimes less than that. Now, it really is, that those numbers are not good to me. I want them to be way higher. I think we can. I think we can help these children realize their potential, but it's going to take a lot of getting through hard things, and processing hard stuff. So, anyway, for me, I grew up in cars, tents, motels, drug labs, government apartments, rat-infested trailers, couches of friends. I also had the honor of being in Salvation Armies. Thankful for those shelters. A foster home agency called Buckner International, and also some relatives. And I consider the school a home as well. So for me, I had all of those things kind of defining and shaping what my reality looked like. My birth mother struggled with addiction. She just had a lot of problems growing up with a very abusive father and very abusive home life, and turbulent as well. She ended up having her first child at 15 and 4 children by the time she was 23 years old. And my birth father was incarcerated most of my life um, for child sexual assault. And so he abused my siblings and myself, and ended up getting put in prison, thankfully, so that he could hopefully turn his life around. And he also experienced, his mother passed away and her life was taken when he was 3 years old, and he experienced abandonment and, death around him, all kinds of like hardship as well. And I tell you all of that because I want you to understand that it was generational for our family. So it was something that came from where they came from, and they just kind of repeated the cycle. And so, statistics show that, okay, my life should have looked the same way. Now, he also struggled with drug abuse and alcoholism and things like that, as well. And so, given those circumstances, this is my mom and this is my dad. There really wasn't a lot of like hope that things would get better for me in the future. But I was one of those kids that just dreamed a lot. I dreamed of becoming something. And so when I was little, at like 10 years old, I remember I was laying in this trailer that we lived in, and I was looking out the window, and there was a moonlit night and a little street lamp as well, but I don't know which one was shining brighter at that time. But to me, it was like the moon and the stars, and there were some shades like from the trees, and I pretended like those things were. It was like a big stage of people listening to me as I sang. And I remember going to bed and dreaming about that I would be on a stage and I would be singing in front of thousands of people, and they would all be listening. And, at the time I was either singing Reba McEntire or Mariah Carey. I don't know, but both of those were kind of my favorites at the time. And so I just remember dreaming really big. And honestly, my third grade teacher kind of made a huge difference in my life. When I was in the third grade, I remember she would brush my hair, and I would have like these knots underneath, and she would kind of brush my hair, and just make a huge difference in my life. She would spray her little perfume, and I even keep in my classroom some lotion for my students, and she would read books to me. In fact, this morning I just read a book to a child in a tent. She sat in the tent and I read it to her, all excited, um, because those things are so meaningful to me. And um, my teachers really made a huge impact in my life, because life was so turbulent at home, and I wanted to things to change. Um, and when I was 15 years old, I walked into the house, and my mother, we had been, like I said, in and out of foster care, and she got us back about 13, when I was about 13. And when I walked in the house, she was angry about something, and she started strangling me. And I'm not sure why, but she threw me in this chair and she just started strangling me. And looking in her eyes, it was the darkest, blackest I'd ever seen her eyes. And I wasn't sure what was wrong, because I didn't do anything and that I knew of. Now I was a teenager, so I could have had a mouth on me. I don't know. I may have said something that set her off. I'm not sure. But I know that it wasn't anything that warranted that kind of behavior. And so anyway, as she was strangling me, she said, "Are you ready to die tonight?" Over and over. And then she pulled me by my hair to the back. We lived in a government funded apartment at that time, and she pulled me to the back room and tried to throw me off of the balcony of this second story of this government funded apartment. And I held on to the bar that was like holding the porch up, a pillar or whatever it was. And so I'm holding on to that as tight as I could. And she gave up and took me into a room and said, "You need to think about why you deserve to live." And I remember getting up to go to the bathroom that night, and thinking about why am I here, why am I alive? And I really struggled with that, and I wanted to change. I wanted to make uh, a different life for myself, but I didn't exactly know how. But I didn't feel like I could survive. And that night I wanted to take my life, and it was the first time I ever remember being suicidal. But I realized that um, something, well, okay, that night I remember thinking that I wanted to end it, but then I didn't. There was like this still small voice in me that just said, "I'm not done with you yet." So I just went to the couch, and I mean the back to the bedroom, and I laid on the bed, and um, I thought about it. I thought about what my life looked like. I thought about what I wanted my life to look like. And as I'm laying there, I fell asleep finally. It took a long time, lots of thoughts. The next day when I woke up, I left and I came back. And whenever I came back, I walked in the back room and my birth mother had a needle in her arm. And I knew at that moment that I had to leave. I had to go do something different, because I knew that nothing was going to change. She had struggled with addiction and she was supposed to be clean and sober, and she was relapsing. And that's why she tried to murder me. That's why she was so angry. And I just realized that if I didn't leave that day, that I was either going to die, or it's just nothing is ever going to get better. And so I walked in, I saw her with the needle, and I just said, "I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. And that's a promise, and I don't break my promises." And I left, and I packed a little trash bag of items that I could take with me. And I became a runaway homeless youth at the age of 15. And I called my best friend, and her mom came and picked me up. And I said, "Can I sleep on your couch for just a little while until I figure this out?" I didn't want to go back into foster care. And so she said yes. And I worked towards and I had already been working jobs at this time. I started my first job at 13, through a youth work program in the summers. And so I got to have some experience in what it was like to work. And I started working, and I actually ended up with 3 jobs and going to high school. And by the time I was 16, a judge granted my emancipation. And so after being granted my emancipation, I bought a little $1,500 trailer, a little $500 car, and I worked as hard as I could. And at one of my jobs, there was this lady, this young lady. She was 1 year older. She wasn't even that. She was a few months older than me, but she was one grade older than me. And she said, "Hey, come to church with me." Now, at that time, I didn't know anything about church. I had been a couple of times just while I was in foster care and things like that, but it wasn't, to me, like, church wasn't really anything that was like instilled in me. But I do remember um, wanting to be a part of a family. And so this girl asked me and asked me and asked me. And finally, I went, and she introduced me to her family. And I was almost a senior in high school at this moment. And her family invited me over for dinner. And one night I went to dinner with them, and they said, "We want you to come live with us." And I was like, "What?" I can't do that. If I did that, if I sold my trailer, what happens if I move in and y'all don't want me anymore? I'll become a homeless youth again. I did not want to get rid of everything that I had and them not really want me, and then have to go back to where I started. And so it really took me a while to decide. But eventually, these people, they wanted to provide just a senior year. Basically, that's how they put it. "We want you to go to college. We want to provide a senior year for you. Um, we want you to work really hard, and but to not have to work 3 jobs to help provide for yourself." So I ended up moving in with them when right before my senior year in high school, and I got to have a senior year. I went on a senior trip, and I got to see what it was like to have dinner as a family. I got to go on a ski trip with a youth group. I really got to experience a lot of things that were really fun and really meaningful and really powerful. And I even applied for college, and I did not get accepted because, as you can imagine, with the life that I had growing up, I was in the bottom half of the class. So I wasn't like top, scores. I didn't even know what a GPA was at that time, and I'm almost a senior in high school. And so I was like, but maybe I can get into college. And the college that I applied to said no, my grades were too low. Then I wrote them a letter and said, "Please, I didn't exactly have a normal upbringing, but if you could give me a chance, I'd like to try." And so they said, "Okay, we'll accept you on academic probation." So they accepted me, and I had a 4.0 after that first semester, and they kept me. And so I was really proud of all of the hard work that I put into that. And I ended up, meeting my husband. I have the honor and privilege of being a mom now of 4 beautiful girls. I'm a bonus mom to 2 of them, and my husband and I have had 2 children together. So you can see their pictures right behind me.
Yay.
This is Molly, Emma, Abby, and Willow. And so I love being a mom, and then I just recently, I'd love to tell you all about my book, but I want to see
Yeah.
what you want to say.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations, and what a heart-centered story.
Thank you.
Well, I would really love to have you talk about um, what you're doing now
Mhm.
with regards to that book that you have, and what are the hopes and dreams you have for the children, and also maybe something where you can give us some tips about where it was when you were hopeless. Like, what was it in your mind that you shifted? But I
Mhm.
really I want everybody to see that book for sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So first, do you want me to talk about the shift first? Because
Yeah, the shift
I
in
think
the
that's
book.
really
I
important.
think what you're doing now is
Yeah.
so amazing. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So the paradigm shift for me when I was 15 and I decided to leave, I knew, like I said, if I didn't leave, nothing was going to change. So if I didn't change it, if I didn't make the changes, it wasn't going to change. If I relied on everybody else, the possibility of everything, shifting or changing for me was hopeless. Because for me, the examples that I'd had, and yes, there were great people and I had great teachers, but I'm saying I was responsible for that first moment of making a move. And if I did not do that, um, and put in that hard work right away, then I don't know where I would be. I don't know
Well,
where I would be. And honestly, the teachers that poured into me and said you can do anything. I had an English teacher who in high school who basically just loved me right where I was. I remember I fell asleep in my classroom like this, and I was tired. And instead of getting on to me, and basically thinking that I was being disrespectful, she had compassion for me. And she said, I know you're going through a lot. Why don't you go to the nurse's office and take a nap? So that compassion was a big deal. You know, I had experienced that compassion and that love of these outsiders, these people who are not in my family. And
well, I want to
because of
let
that,
me put a pause button there because I
yeah.
want everybody here to take note and take a deep breath in.
Mm,
And we are putting some energy out there for all the school teachers who are doing the same
yes.
right now. And the reason that I tear up is I was in the classroom for many, many years, and the special ed classroom, and we would get all the foster kids, and
Hmm.
and I knew that they weren't going to be there that long.
Hmm.
Because and when they would come and then they would be gone, and I knew
Yep.
legally there we can't find them. We're not allowed
Yeah.
to know anything about them. And I remember just like like, okay, well, you're pouring your heart out into them while they're here,
Yeah.
and then they would be gone, and I would go home so many times at night just crying,
Yeah.
um, because and then there's like yeah, and so when you said that, I'm like, it just brought up like, oh,
Yeah.
and then also uh, the fact that there are so many children out there in that situation. So
Yes.
and that it is very unusual. I don't really know. I've only been one of the teachers of many of those um, beautiful beings that we pray for them all the time, and
Yeah.
also I there's so many times that I vision myself meeting them on the streets now,
Yeah.
and even though they would look totally different, so it gives me like this paradigm shift of like, well, there it is. And because we're
Hmm.
always shifting, we all have stories. So
Hmm.
anyway, I just wanted to interject that and bless you being in the
Thank you.
classroom right now, and you're a behavior specialist in the classroom. And Emily,
Yes.
so tell us about this. And your book is so beautiful, and it's a workbook
Thank
too,
you.
right? Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, first off, with the teachers, I just want to say this. Thank you for all of your hard work, everything that you do, everything that you put up with, everything that you um, go home with, every child that you have the blessing of touching in this world. I just want to say thank you for planting seeds. You have to plant seeds of hope into all of these children in order to build trust with them. So I want to encourage you real fast to encourage the children to dream. Encourage them to dream about anything they could be. If nothing was stopping them, what would they want to do? Even if they say something that's like way outside of like what you see right now, dream, encourage them to dream, because that very thing, you know, as I've gone throughout the years, I may not be like a famous singer, but what I see is I have spoken on stages in front of thousands of people, and I've been able to share my story. And so it's almost like that dream became a reality, but even in a different way. Um, Encourage them to dream, give them hugs, let them express their feelings, and don't take it personally, because so many of them are just struggling and they just need somebody who's going to use their ears and listen, just like we want them to do. um, just you can use your ears to listen to them as well, and be present when you say you will go above and beyond. But don't make promises that you're not going to keep. That's a really big deal. um, Tell them that they matter and that they're important to you. Give them responsibilities that make them feel important. I had this little boy in the third grade that his name was Jared, and he was actually autistic. He was mute, and he didn't really talk. He just had a lot of emotions, and for some reason, I felt him. I didn't know at the time that it was a special relationship. My teacher put me in charge of helping him get his toys because he would have to have chew toys and things to like move with his hands and things like that. So I could tell when he was getting nervous or upset, and I would go get his stuff. I was in charge of him. So he needed me every day that I could be there. And that made me feel like I was wanted, like I was needed. And that meant a lot to me. So, and then give them tools to help them cope. You know, give them a little chart that has emotions on it and teaches them to breathe and teaches them to see the world in colorful ways. Teach them about growth mindset versus fixed mindset and how to grow their mind and how to grow their lives. And no matter what's going on at home, help them to see that, you know, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. You know, it's not, this thing can make you stronger. It can build your character. It can make you better. And I don't wish it upon you, but I hear you, I feel you, and I'm here for you. So those are the things that I would give to teachers. Thank you for what you do. You are doing the work of a saint, and you deserve so much more than you get. But thank you for sacrificing your life to do that work. Um,
Hey, let me
Now,
see.
oh, go ahead. Okay, yeah, real fast. This book is called Always Forever, and you can get it simplyencouraged.com is my website. Um, Now, I actually was holding my little baby girl when she was born. This one right here, silly face over here. I was holding her when she was born, and I was reading a book called "I'll Love You Forever, I'll Like You for Always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be." And as I was reading that to her, I started self-loathing and getting upset because I realized my life wasn't like that. Like I didn't have this mom who like loved me so deeply. Now she did the best she could, but I'm just saying, like at that point, I was kind of angry, and I was holding this child, thinking, how could I ever not love this child deeply? How could I ever hurt her? How could you know? And so as I'm holding her, um, I start weeping and I start processing things didn't even think was a thing to process at the time. And I remember after a bit of self loathing, um, I thought, you know, it may not have been mom saying those words that they loved me forever, they liked me for always, as long as I was living my baby, their baby, I'll be. It may not have been my mom, but it would be a slap in the face not to acknowledge all of the people who loved me and all of the people who poured into my life. And so instead of focusing on what I didn't have, it was time for me to start focusing on what I did have. And I had, not only did I have amazing teachers and nosy neighbors and, you know, great just people surrounding me. Uh, I had a loving husband, you know, that I have to still at this time. And I was like, I have a family of my own, and I don't need to be sad about all of the stuff I didn't have. I need to focus on what I do have. But I thought, what could I do? Because there's hundreds of thousands of children who won't get to hear this message of the love, of the always forever kind of love, um, because you know someone who's not their mom might not read that to them because it's not the same relationship. So I decided to write. Well, I wrote a song first. I wrote a lullaby to my own daughter, but thinking about what people loved, how people loved me, and so and it's about so anyway, with the book, it comes with a lullaby
Oh,
that
let
you
me
get.
see. Let's see the book cover again,
Yes, yes.
and then we're gonna end up here. And there you go. And so there's so much more I'd love to ask you. And I wanted one more thing, and then we're going to sign off, and then stay backstage with us for a couple minutes.
Okay.
But so here's what I really love to end on these all the time is we have a community here of paradigm shifters globally, and we would love to put a blessing on you,
I would
Ellison,
love that.
and we would love to hold for you. What would you love to have us hold for you and for the rest, for where you are right now and for your journey? What would you love?
I would love for this book to be in the hands of every single child who is hurting, maybe who doesn't know how much they're loved, who isn't being raised by their mom or dad who's being raised by foster parents or neighbors or teachers. I would love for this book to be read in classrooms, which it is, but I would love for teachers to um, to read it. I would love for it to go places and just be in the hands of the people who need it most. And just so y'all know, it also has a place for foster parent, teacher, anybody to write a letter of encouragement of what they love about that child. And it has a nighttime routine, and it has a heart search on every single page. So, like, if you'll look here, there's a little heart in the window for the children to find, and the social emotional lesson with that. And there's different races of children. There's a child with disabilities, a child in a wheelchair. The social emotional lesson to that, though, is because I had two brothers that committed suicide, and they took their life because they didn't see the value that they had, and they struggled with self-medication and alcoholism as well. And this book is also for them. This book is for the children that are like them, that don't see the value in their life, that don't understand how incredibly loved they are. It's so that they can go back and go, you know, I was looking for hearts with somebody, and that somebody claimed me as their own, even though I wasn't their own physically, biologically. They claimed me as their own. They loved me. And so even if we don't feel loved right in the moment, that you have to search for it. So teaching these children how to search for the love that they're missing, whether that be through God or through the people that helped raise them or whatever it is, it's very valuable to teach children to look for that love. And then also, I have to share this. That is actually my brother's.
Oh,
Um, so this is my brother Daniel, and this is my brother Sean. And they're the ones who are no longer with us, but I wanted to honor them in my book as well. And so you get to see a little bit of them as well in the book. So
oh my gosh! Thank you so so much for being here. And wow, and I'm so grateful for you and your work. And thank you
thank
so
you.
much for being part of our Paradigm Shifters community.
Thank
Yeah,
you for having me. It means a lot. It
yeah.